But you don't say, oh, there's just another step in between. Like there's nothing smaller than like a whole tone, like a half tone. There's nothing in our system. In Western tonal music, the smallest thing is a half tone. In some Indian raga, the smallest tone is something smaller. But it's still something. And there's nothing smaller than that. And you hear everything in terms, it's just like Snickers and sneakers. I have Snickers and sneakers, you have polka and polka, right? And that's it. And so Western tonal music, we have polo tone, and in raga, they have whatever they have, and that's it, okay? Come on in, I'm just starting. It's true. So, but do you see the similarity? The discrete perception of phonemes in language is like the discrete perception of tones in music. Each system is different, each language is different, but the principle, you could imagine on a different planet, different creatures that don't have discrete perception of tone, right? They have gradual perception. So there's like sneakers, right? And there's no sudden break. Imagine that in music. There would be no melody, really. Because everything, and you can do that on a violin, right? Now, is that a melody? Not really, right? It's something you can do, but it's not clear that it's a melody, right? That it's a natural, that you can organize it in your mind. This is how you organize it. You say, you kind of organize, there's a starting point and an end point. And in between, there's like, and that's maybe not even perceived as music. Not clear. And there's extreme constraints of grain changing and musical possibilities also. Okay. Time. You have time issues. Okay. So this is what Sabine talked about. I mean, you have these things that are totally ungrammatical. Ready? Here's the English example. Very quick linguistics lecture. Now, okay? John thinks that Mary loves chocolate. John asked why Mary loves chocolate. Because it's tasty. Okay. Now, here's no problem. What does John think that Mary loves? So you're asking a question about the chocolate, right? And the answer is chocolate. Okay? But now try combining them. What did John ask why Mary loves? What? What? What did John ask why Mary loves? Okay, but think about it. John asked why Mary loves chocolate. So we're asking about the chocolate. What did John ask why? It's totally ungrammatical. It's so ungrammatical that you can't even, you're like, what? But there's nothing strange about the semantics. It's a very simple question. I asked why she loves X. What is the X such that I asked why she loves X? If you do it without why, I think that Mary loves X. What is the X that Mary loves? What does John think that Mary loves? Fine. What did John ask why Mary loves? Impossible. That's just ungrammaticality. It has nothing to do with meaning. It's just structure. Here's another example. John met an agent who loves chocolate. An agent. Why are there agents in all of this? John met an agent who loves chocolate. Okay? So you want to ask a question about chocolate. So try it. What did John met an... What? What did John... No, that's a mistake. It should be meet. What did John meet? That's my mistake. What did John meet an agent who loves? Totally unreal. Totally unreal. But it's very obvious what it means. These are the kinds of things that Sabine talked about, right? In detail. We have an explanation for this, but it's very complicated. You have to draw trees of the sentences and show what the blockers are and why the movements are bad and stuff like that. And that is ungrammaticality in language, and I can give you some Russian examples too. Although Sabine's Russian examples were not all ungrammatical when she said, or something. But anyway, look, if you try to do this, like, хочешь, чтобы Маша починила машину в гараже, где, хоть знает, где она починила, that one's okay, right? Где, в гараже, что он хочет, чтобы она починила, not too bad, but how about что он знает, где она починила? It's exactly the same problem as English. Exactly. It's a simple idea. Он знает, где она починила что-то. А что? Right? Here's the agent. Иван встретил агента, который любит шоколад. Same agent. Right? Что Иван встретил агента, который любит? Wow! Completely ungrammatical. It's the same problem. We can draw the same structures, the same trees, and it turns out that these constraints exist in every single language. Everything. These are not taught. Nobody taught you this W.H. Island in school. Nobody talks about ungrammaticality like this in school. These are not taught. They are not cultural. They're not semantic. They're just pure cognitive ungrammaticality restrictions. And every language has them. Now, what is domain specific in music? What's domain specific in music is the feeling of motion, right? Like we said, groove, right? We got the groove. There's that feeling of motion, right? So let me give you one more musical example now, classical. Sorry if you don't like classical music. Let's see, let's try. Oh, I think it's this one. I think it's this one. There's a movement, right? You're moving, and you're going somewhere, and you're going away, and then you're coming back. And also, how many instruments are playing? Now, 3 instruments. But it's no problem for you to organize all 3 into one complicated, moving thing that's it keeps growing, and it's going somewhere, and it's coming back. Well, now there's 3. And there's a moment when it's back, and you go, okay, everything's okay, right? Although it goes for a long time. But if you go to the very end, let's skip to the end. Sorry, that was not music. Oh, a little bit too long. Now listen to it. Everybody's happy. Everybody's happy. Even if it's very sad music. Did I get it in time? Before you got home. Before you returned home. Right? It's called returning home. Because the tonic is like home. And you go out and then you come back. And music has a sense of movement. But why does it have a sense of movement? There is no movement. There's no movement. It's just sound. The next note is not connected to the previous note in the real world. Your mind is doing that. There is no connection, actual physical connection. It's a cognitive arrangement, not a real arrangement, right? Because if you hear a bunch of these, there's no connection. But you might create one. You hear a rhythm in that too. But so the point is that these are cognitive constructs. We know that from Kant, I suppose, right? At least that these, with respect to ideas. But even with respect to music, it's a cognitive construct. It doesn't mean that it's not true. It might be true, but it's not. It's not a physical reality. It's a cognitive reality, right? And that sense of motion, I have that. You have that. We all have that when we listen to this music, right? But when I listen to Indian raga, it's like listening to a foreign language. Maybe I don't have that sense of motion because I don't understand this language, because I didn't hear it when I was a child. But if you heard it when you were a child, then you have no problem with it. And then we could create some sounds which aren't music for anybody, because they do not correspond to anything that is cognitively real. Okay. Now. So, octaves we talked about, tonal organization we talked about, scales. Now, if you know MIDI music, you know how to go like do, re, mi, fa, so, you know how to do that. Right? A piano, if you take a piano and you start at the right place and you go like that, it gives you a scale. Right? Now, the thing about scales is, that if you look at the major scale, now you do not have to have musical training, but if you have musical training, you'll understand this faster. But everybody has this, right? You know, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si. You say si? Si, do, right? Tonic to tonic, one octave. But if you look at the piano, there's 2 half steps there, 2 half steps there, and only 1 half step there, right? In a major scale, right? Do, re, mi. Because if you look at the piano, there's a space in between do and re, and between re and mi, but there's nothing in between mi, and there's no black note on the piano between mi and fa, right? And there's no black note on the piano between si and do, which means that the number of steps is not symmetrical. Right? That's why it's called asymmetrical scales. Now, that is true of every single musical system in the world. The scales might be different. Some systems have 5 notes, some have 7, some have 20, but they're always asymmetrical, not symmetrical. Now, why not? If you think about it for a few seconds, you realize why not. If the steps were symmetrical, you would never know where you are, because all the relationships would be the same. And if you're located here, but if I play this, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si, do, you know, if I play that and I stop somewhere, you know where you are. You're like, pятая степень, шестая, седьмая. How can you know that it's седьмая, like the 6th or 7th step? Because you know its relationship to this, right? If this was 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, then you wouldn't know anything ever, and you'd always be lost. Here, you're always oriented. You always know where you are with respect to your home. And in music theory classes, you teach people to take 2 notes and then say, well, what key could you be in? You could be in do or fa, but you could not be in, you know, la or something like that. And the minor scale has the 1s and 2s in different places. That's all. But it's still asymmetrical. This is the minor, what they call harmonic minor scale. This is the natural minor scale. But what's important is this. Where is there a whole step and where is there a half step? Okay? And every scale is different. But no scale is 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. Yeah. That's a universal music. And it makes sense because we have to be able to organize it in our head. Okay. Now, the most important part, well, not the most important, but what I wanted to talk about is the controversial. You know a little about music, a little about language now. How similar are they? How different are they? Well, they look similar. Everybody knows music. Everybody knows language. Some things are ungrammatical. And in this case, they involve sound, both. And this metrical thing is quite similar because we have that in language also. Like, you know, here's a way of talking about metrical systems in music with strong beats with more X's and weak beats with fewer X's. But you can do the same thing with language. A familiar story about Beethoven, stronger with X's, weaker without X's, and so on. Similar, not exactly the same, because the spacing is always identical in music and in language it's not. But they're similar. Okay? But now comes these guys, Katz and Pizzetti, from MIT, which is where Sabine Atrito works. Right? So these are her colleagues. And they say, look, language and music are not similar, they are identical. And you say, well, what? They're not identical. Fodor told us that the modules are separate. How can they be identical? And they say, well, in a very particular sense. They have different building blocks, like you know, the basic единицы, they're like kipichi, whatever you want to call them.